Very good morning. Selamat sejahtera. Vanakkam, namaskar, sastrika. And ni hao ma. I'm just trying. I hope I said it right. And okay, Roshan was doing an introduction, and I was expecting more, bigger, louder, big round of applause. But very sadly, I heard only a little bit of that side, and this side tak ada langsung. So I don't know whether your ladies, that's it. That is the power that we want to hear. Otherwise, it's just waste of our dressing and makeup today, isn't it? Look at all of you, so beautifully done up. And we've got all great speakers since morning that I believe already given you the energy. So please stay with us with that energy. If you need to charge up a little bit, join us. I've got two powerful ladies beside me. On my right is Ambassador Ninette from Romania, and I've got Nurul, and she's one of the Iron Lady coming up in the corporate sector. We're going to talk to both of them later more. And I just wanted to start with a little introduction about our session today. We are talking about the future and also what we have passed in our life before. And I also had our chair lady who spoke about empowerment. I also been hearing our leaders who has been talking about inclusiveness. Now, I want to say that I'm not here to empower any one of you here. No. I'm sure that you're hearing it, right? I don't want to empower you because, to be honest, I'm pretty over the whole notion about women being empowered. And I tell you why. I've spoken about this in the International Women Conference held in March here in Malaysia. To me, empowerment is like giving power and giving authority to a person. So that might to say to empower women, that means we are giving you power, we are giving you the authority. Now, the question is, aren't you not having the authority and the power? Is it lacking? Yeah, is it lacking? Are we not here equally? Look at the men who is together with us today. So are we not having the support from the men? Maybe some part of the world, and there is always, I acknowledge, there is always this gender equality problem exists. But I am very happy with all the excellencies who have joined us from other part of the world to talk about this, to give that equality to us. And we acknowledge, though we have problem, but it is not the problem that we should be lagging about. It is about the future that all of us should strive harder. So do not talk about the statistic. Yeah, I think we have heard enough about the statistic. So this empowerment, you must take an active role in your future by owning the power that you already have. Ladies, I want to ask you this. Do you think you have the power to empower? You empower yourself first before you go and empower another woman. That's why I say I don't want to empower you guys. You all here, you have the power. And I tell you why you have the power. You have the intelligence. You are smart. You are beautiful. You can walk tall. Are we not having that? Do we have that? Then don't worry about people to empower us, isn't it? You already have the power that it takes you to move to the next ladder of being a special leader here today. That is the topic. And there is no secret here, but it is all about yourself. So that skill, that quality that we are talking about that can take you ahead to the next level of senior leadership in the world, and you are there, you have more power, and more potential than you can ever realize yourself. So for that, I would like to begin this session with a big round of applause to all the women that carries the power. I know I used to say this as well. We are not Wonder Woman that wear bra outside, or neither a Superman who wears the underwear outside. Right? But we have the power to fly. Okay, so I want to just touch a little bit about the companies that most representation of a women in the world, that even in the Fortune 500 companies, there's only about 6.4% of women who sits at the board and also C-level. But here in Malaysia, there has been some, well, I also heard ma'am told that don't talk about giving some quota, okay? But the pushing factor, what the quota give? Giving the pushing factor. So that pushing factor, again, I also take her point that the pushing factor must come from you, and you have to push yourself. Do we need another person to push ourselves? Are we not? That's the energy I'm talking about, you know. All of us, if you work collaboratively, and that is automatic pushing factor that you already have in yourself. So we don't need somebody. Even I did mention in the World International Women Day, I said, look, sooner or later, we may not need all these women aid organizations because we are not as weak as what others can think. We have the strength for ourselves. I said you have the quality and you have to be the person that you wanted to be. It's all in your hand. It's the desire that you must have in yourself, right? So then you can be where you wanted to be. So furthermore, there's also this company which has outlined a greater gender diversity, which I really believe in it. And while I was talking to some of the speakers this morning, they did mention that, hey, look, when I went in the morning, when I went early to the company, I had very less female representation in the company, female leadership in the company. But along the way, things improve. That is no longer the day that women are not getting information, women are not given the opportunity, women are not called for. Everywhere people are talking about it. Just one question I want to ask. Any of the gentlemen, right in the middle of this table, I have more gentlemen than women, so I'm going to ask this question. Do you have man-aid organization? They don't need. They don't have. Not yet. That's why I'm saying later we may not have women aid organization, but then slowly we might open one man aid organization, right? So that sort of things, yeah. Because why? The change of power. There's a change of power. There's a change happening among us. The diversity that we are experiencing today is more powerful than ever. And I tell you why. Technology makes the difference. I believe Panurul will actually agree with that point. Transformation make the difference, right? We're going to move into that point. And I'm taking this discussion, like I said, let's dive into the women in the workplace, outlining the need of their presence and mindset, and reason why organizations should no longer overlook the prospect of employing more women in leadership role, but it's already given. It's just that women, are we ready? I'm going to take you with 5 key points in discussion today with our distinguished speakers. Number 1, rebuilding. You may want to take note. I don't have a presentation slide, so please write it down, ladies. Rebuilding. You're going to be involved in rebuilding the economy with the power that you already have. Number 1. Agree? Siapa tak agree? Everyone agree? Women are needed to build the economy. Number 1. Number 2, leading. Women leadership, or women leading the charge of equitable workplace. That is the leading part. Number 3, transforming. Transforming the entrepreneurship through technology. I said it. I'm a strong believer in technology and transformation. So that happens. Because of that, today, women will never be led at the back. Those women who is still at the back and struggling, please come forward. There are more powerful women here today. We are all here to help and support. Revitalize supply chain with women-owned SMEs. I believe that many of you are SMEs here today, and strengthen the supply chain in our country with your presence. Important, revitalizing. And the last one is promoting the growth with the interest and accountability. I would like to emphasize this point, and I'll be talking about it later. What I mean by interest and accountability. All right, that will be my closing point later. Now, I would like to begin with this very interesting question. And if any one of you would like to answer, also take the mic later after the panelist is done. You can also answer this question. My question to all of you here is it women leadership a fantasy or a reality? I just don't want the fantasy reality answer, but give an explanation why you say reality, right? And why. Now, with the same question, we will begin with our panelist discussion. And we have the first person, we have Her Excellency Elsa Maria Barber Diaz dos Santos, Secretary of State for the Family and Promotion of Women, Ministry of Social Action, Family and Women's Promotion of Angola, pre-recorded. Let's listen from her. Big round of applause, though she's not here, but she has given us her support.
Excelência Primeiro-Ministro da Nova Zelândia, Excelência Ministro do Turismo, Artes e Cultura da Malásia, dignos membros da Comissão Organizadora do Fórum Econômico Mundial e de Mulheres de Negócios, distintos delegados e convidados, distinta Kamala Veni Batumalai, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, é com grande honra que, em nome do Ministério da Ação Social, Família e Promoção da Mulher do Executivo de Angola, tomo a palavra neste magno evento voltado para o empoderamento econômico e social das mulheres, um segmento importável para o alicerce sustentável do desenvolvimento dos países rumo ao cumprimento das agendas 2030 e 2063. O MASFAMO é o órgão auxiliar do titular do Poder Executivo, que tem como missão conceber, propor e executar as políticas sociais relativas aos grupos mais vulneráveis da população, a promoção do desenvolvimento local e do combate à pobreza, bem como a defesa e bem-estar da família, promoção da mulher, desenvolvimento das comunidades e garantia dos direitos da mulher, igualdade e equidade do género. O setor está estruturado em duas áreas, sendo a ação social e a área da família e promoção da mulher, e eu que honradamente vos falo, sou a Secretária de Estado para a Família e Promoção da Mulher e coordeno as políticas relacionadas com a família, mulher, igualdade de género, pessoas com deficiência, crianças e idosos. 52% da população angolana é do género feminino. 53% da população economicamente ativa são mulheres. As mulheres são cuidadoras primárias das crianças e principais cuidadoras dos idosos e doentes. A população angolana é maioritariamente jovem. 2/3 têm entre 0 e 25 anos. Deste grupo, a população feminina representa mais do que metade, 51%. No âmbito de programas de promoção de género em Angola, destaco algumas medidas que o Executivo de Angola tem desenvolvido, nomeadamente medidas de prevenção contra a gravidez na adolescência e casamento precoce, empoderamento econômico da mulher, violência baseada no género, principalmente no aspecto da violência sexual, tráfico para a prostituição e apoio à vítima de violência. Macroprograma sobre a discriminação contra a mulher, programas de incentivos na mulher nas tecnologias, programa de educação, inclusão e literacia financeira. Para dar suporte a estes programas, foram aprovados instrumentos legais, que passo a citar: Lei 25/11 sobre a violência doméstica e o seu regulamento aprovado pelo Decreto Presidencial 26/13 de 8 de maio, Decreto Presidencial número 226/20, que aprova o Estatuto Orgânico da Família e Promoção da Mulher, Decreto Presidencial número 52/12, que aprova o regulamento da Comissão Nacional de Prevenção e Auditoria de Mortes Maternas e Neonatais, Decreto Presidencial número 222/13, que aprova a Política Nacional para a Igualdade e Equidade de Gênero, Decreto Presidencial número 124/13, de 28 de agosto, que aprova o regulamento da Lei 25/11, da Lei contra a Violência Doméstica, e o Decreto Presidencial 26/13, que aprova o Plano Executivo de Combate à Violência Doméstica. Decreto Presidencial número 155, de 9 de agosto, que aprova o regime jurídico do trabalho doméstico e de proteção social. Decreto Presidencial número 143/17, que aprova o Plano Nacional de Ação da Resolução número 1325 sobre Mulheres, Paz e Segurança do Conselho Nacional das Nações Unidas. A inclusão de mulheres no sistema econômico e financeiro em África e no mundo será sempre um corolário da educação e das transformações culturais e sociais que formos capazes de realizar. E isso é algo que devemos incutir em todos os contextos: familiar, social, político, cultural, desportivo, no ensino e no acesso ao mercado de trabalho e às carreiras profissionais em igualdade de circunstâncias, para a materialização do compromisso de criar uma sociedade justa e equitativa, onde os cidadãos têm igualdade de direitos, deveres e oportunidades. Identificamos os seguintes desafios: transversalizar a igualdade de género na ação governativa, investir no capital humano, potenciar as oportunidades econômicas para as mulheres, promover a mudança de atitudes e normas, desconstruindo estereotipos, adotar e implementar políticas e legislação que erradiquem todas as formas de violência contra as mulheres e promovam a participação destas na vida pública e política. Ainda no âmbito da ação de programas de inclusão econômica, somos a destacar o PRE, Iniciativa Multissetorial do Governo de Angola, sob a coordenação do Ministério da Economia e Planeamento, que visa a reconversão da economia informal para formal. Ciclo de formação e formalização de cooperativas e campanhas para os processos de abertura de contas bancárias simplificadas, o protocolo de parceria rubricado entre o Ministério da Ação Social, Família e Promoção da Mulher e o Banco Nacional de Angola para reforçar o desenvolvimento de ações destinadas à promoção de literacia e inclusão financeira das famílias, dos grupos mais vulneráveis da população e das mulheres a nível nacional. No âmbito da participação e representatividade feminina, partilhamos estatísticas do nosso país. No governo, temos 36% de mulheres ministras de Estado, 48%, ministras, 39%, secretárias de Estado, 12%, governadoras provinciais, 22%, no Parlamento temos 30,5%, na diplomacia temos 40% de mulheres, temos 35% de diretoras nacionais. Na magistratura temos 33% de juízes no Tribunal Constitucional. Como presidente do Tribunal de Contas temos uma mulher, como presidente do Tribunal Constitucional temos uma mulher, para além da vice-presidente. Presidente dos tribunais de comarca temos 26%, temos 38% de juízas na magistratura judicial, 34,4% de magistradas no Ministério Público, temos 31% de advogadas e 49% de escrivãs. Como desafios, temos perspectivar um orçamento sensível ao género e não neutro em relação ao género, atendendo à importância da sensibilidade de género institucional. Criação de um observatório de género para apoiar na recolha de dados sobre o impacto das políticas públicas das mulheres e no combate contra as desigualdades, a fim de moldar e estudar políticas públicas sensíveis à igualdade de género. Promover formas de microcrédito alavancar a geração de renda das mulheres, a fim de contribuir para o combate à pobreza, inclusão econômica e financeira, promover a criação e formalização de cooperativas como instrumentos facilitadores de negócios. Desenvolvemos amplos programas no âmbito da saúde sexual e reprodutiva da mulher, em que destacamos o grande público-alvo, que são as jovens mulheres. Temos amplos programas de empreendedorismo em alinhamento com federações e associações e organizações não governamentais, em que o público-alvo também são jovens mulheres em segmentos diversificados, como corte e costura, setor de agronegócio, setor comportamental e também no setor pescatório. Na academia, temos uma grande participação de mulheres a nível da docência e como discentes. É cada vez mais notório o número de mulheres que ascendem às nossas universidades. Quero com isto, uma vez mais, agradecer a participação e a oportunidade que deram ao meu país, Angola. Muito obrigada.
Yes, I think we have an interpreter. Yes? No. Okay, so we move on. All right, so what we do, there's a request, organizer, there's a request from the audience that if this version can be translated and you all can receive the video later. Yeah? Okay, that's a good point. Thank you. And we want to, can I just make sure that our Ambassador Delia, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Philippines, and also the former Ambassador and Senior Advisor of Sycip, Gorres, Velayo and Company from the Philippines. Can we have her, please? Hello. Hi, Delia.
Can you hear me? I'm here.
Yes, we can hear you very well. Thank you for joining us today morning. Lovely to see you.
Sorry not to be there. I have to stay home sometime.
Understand. Delia, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I would like to take up the round with you first, with the first question relating to women leadership. Is it a fantasy or a reality? How do you take it from your perspective? Let's begin with an introduction of yourself, Delia.
Leadership, I think it's a reality. In my own experience, I have believed that I have developed a career where I could reach a position of leadership. As the Prime Minister of New Zealand said, leadership has different styles. We can be leaders in the economy, we can be leaders in politics, we can be leaders in the community. But perhaps, first of all, I'd like to thank Michael for inviting me. It's been 3 years since I saw you last, Michael, for the 50th anniversary of
Yeah, I think it's the connection problem that we have, Delia.
To write copy,
All right, sorry for, technology. When you rely too much on them, this is what happens also. Although technology is supposed to be pushing factor for us, right? Sometimes it pulls us at the back also. Right. Organizer, could you please get Delia back online? So while waiting for Delia to come back, and perhaps you can also advise her, Kamala, to make sure that her connection is good. Is she there? Right. She's back. No, she's still frozen, yes. Oh dear.
I'm frozen. Can you hear me? The picture is frozen.
It's our connection.
It's your connection?
Yeah. Yeah.
Asian should have better connection links.
Right. Delia, okay, I think we missed you. But since the connection is quite bad, I would suggest that we go for audio instead of video. So that would actually help you to reduce the lagging.
Do I get back to the beginning, or how do you want me to proceed?
You can proceed, Delia, but can you please turn off your video? Yes, okay. Delia, you can proceed with the explanation. We missed you earlier. Perhaps you want to just catch up where we missed you just now. You were talking about
well, I was talking
reality, yes.
It's a reality as far as I'm concerned, but of course it's something that women have to work on consistently over time. I think we can get a good hold of what leadership means. But I was very pleased to hear the statement of Prime Minister of New Zealand, where she recognized the different styles or types of leadership. Can come in political leadership, economic leadership, but overall, I think women in general do have today in our times the opportunities to become leaders in whatever field they would like to choose to be. In my own experience as a diplomat, I was always been impressed by role models I have met during my early days. But lately, I think I have always shared in some of my meetings on women in political leadership about a wonderful book called The Female Brain. There is a fantastic chapter which describes how the female brain works. And I really look at it as an invitation for young girls to join diplomacy for women. Let me quote what and I quote, "The female brain has tremendous unique aptitudes. She has outstanding verbal agility. She has the ability to connect deeply in friendships and nearly psychic capacity to read faces and tone of voice for emotions and states of mind. And finally, the ability to diffuse conflict." I think in her 20-year study, she describes the female brain as different from the way the male brain works. It's not that one is better than the other, but that the female brain works in terrific ways, which I try to refer to when I talk about women in diplomacy. But I don't know if you missed my greetings, but I thought I'd greet Michael and Jesse, whom I have met in my other experiences with the team of Michael Yo, who has been working so diligently in making this world a better place. I was also quite pleased to hear what he had to say, and I think in conversations like we have today, we should always have the men as equal number of speakers, and that they should be interacting with us. Otherwise, we can always be talking to the converted. I think that's one of the major the observations I've made in many of the summits. I have just come from the 32nd Global Summit of Women in Bangkok last week, where I met Jessie. And certainly we make an effort to bring in the male voice into the conversation. We all are convinced who we are, but it's always good to bring them around because there are certain practices, biases that have to be made clear to men who, after all, are leading in most economic and political activities. I enjoyed Michael's 4Cs, 4Fs and 4Es. Michael always has a way to summarize his thoughts. On Dr. Jessie's presentation, I was very pleased that she referred to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. I'm very proud that the initial draft of this convention, we submitted our office in the Department of Foreign Affairs to the Commission on the Status of Women as early as 1972. We worked very hard for this convention to be ratified, and I was so glad that Jessie mentioned it because I think it is something that every woman, whether a leader in politics or a leader in economics, should be able to acquaint herself what is this convention all about. I think it should be made required reading for all women to be able to see how they fit into the global conversation on promoting the gender agenda. As I listened to the speeches, I was also struck by what the Minister of Tourism has said. And she reminded me of the Global Summit of Women that was held in Kuala Lumpur in 2013, where we had about 1,200 women from around the world. And we were introduced to the idea of the 30% quota policy of women on boards of Malaysia. And listening recently to somebody's report, that quota has made a difference as it has done in other countries. I certainly welcome that development. And the Minister of Tourism also referred to the World Economic Forum Gender Equity Index. I'm always proud to refer to this index because the Philippines was the only Asian country among the top 10 countries from 2006 to 2016 that has remained in the top 10 countries of 138 countries that has narrowed the gender gap. However, due to some changes in government, we dropped to number 16. Not bad, but my dream is to put us back into the top 10 countries that has truly narrowed the gender gap. I was very pleased also to hear when I chaired the Security Council in 2004, where I presented the agenda, the role of civil society in post-conflict peace building. There I highlighted the very important role that women have and should have in as peacemakers and peacemakers in world politics. We have one woman in the Philippines who has become an advisor to the United Nations on how women should take part in any peace negotiations, because we bring in a very interesting and a very human perspective into developing ways to address the bilateral or multilateral conflicts. During my term as Secretary of Foreign Affairs, as I said, I chaired the UN Security Council. And I remember Kofi Annan telling me how he had met a great number of Filipino women diplomats around the world. I had no idea that we did have such a number, and today I believe we have the largest number of women ambassadors, at least here in our area in Asia. From 1958 to 2021, we've had about 95 women ambassadors leading our diplomatic missions. And as such, they do practice a lot of economic diplomacy in addition to what we normally think what diplomats do. So on those points, I perhaps would like to comment on a very interesting statement of the late colleague and friend Madeleine Albright. I'm sure many of the women in the audience know that she always had the gender agenda in her mind, just like the former head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, who always had a statement on gender equality in her speeches. And one of the final and most exciting quotes from Albright about saying that there is a place in hell for women who don't help other women. In my statements to the UN, I take a more positive statement when I say there is a place in heaven for women who help other women. For me, the message is for women to help other women. In discussing gender gap, perhaps we should also remember that the gap is perhaps okay, a gender gap, but the gap for us, especially in Asia and other parts of the world, is between women who have it all and women who have nothing at all. And it is for this reason I take part in most discussions and activities that are geared toward narrowing the gap that exists between women, and that women ourselves are a major factor in bringing about solutions to the gap that exists between women ourselves. So that, in short, is what I thought I could share with you in the beginning, and I'm prepared to discuss other issues that could follow.
Right. Thank you, Delia. Thank you very much for that wonderful sharing. Yes, all the way from Philippines. Thank you. Now, before we move on to Her Excellency of Elena Kalinina, I think we've got another recording, but I would like to take up with Her Excellency Mrs. Ninette, Ambassador, Embassy of Romania, with a question. I think this is about women leadership that everyone is talking about. And are we in the era of even to think and worry that is it a fantasy or it's a reality? Ninette, over to you. Yeah, you deliver. You can take the stage there.
Thank you. Well, to start with answering the question, I should say that from a fantasy to a reality. We are in between.
That's right.
Obviously. Now, thank you very much. Salamat pagi, and my gratitude for KSI Institute for inviting me to be speaker at this prestigious World Economic Women and Business Summit here in Malaysia. And the good news that I will start with is that we can do nothing. In 2022, we can do nothing. And it still counts. Why? Well, because before the pandemic, there were many reports stating that to fill the gaps between women and men, the humankind in average needs 214 years before pandemic. Then it was pandemic, which shows us how vulnerable we are, no matter how wealthy countries we've been born in, what citizens we are, what we are doing, anything matters. But also, pandemic shows us that we are facing the same challenges. So, and you know, pandemic stayed with us so long that we needed in the end of it to see the opportunities, even if it was so disruptive, so unexpected, and took us by surprise. Of course, 2020, it started rather well with vaccines and with the hope of recovering as human beings, as countries, and as businesses. Surviving is always good in a crisis. That's the benchmark, surviving. But then we have a fresh war in Europe. My country, Romania, who is a NATO and European Union member state by choice, is very close to this war. And this war in Ukraine is disruptive, like any other war, but it's fresh. We are in the day 141 of the war. I'm still counting days. I still hope there will be days till it will be over. All wars are disruptive, all conflicts, no matter the circumstances, all are disruptive for everybody. For instance, since February, we have in Europe almost 3 million of women refugees. 3 million. Think about 3 million households, refugees, plus hundreds of thousands of displaced women, and many other on earth. So what can we do in this reality? It was said very well, a legacy of neglect. It was said very well by the KSI, distinguished KSI president, a legacy of neglect. Although I don't think it's a legacy. It's something that we need to overcome. How are we doing? Well, let me start with the fact that in Romanian Ministry of Defense, 32% of the leadership positions now are fulfilled with women, career women. We need statistics, always. These are the seeds of reality. It's more credible if you are providing statistics. 39% of the Romanians participating to United Nations peacekeeping operations are women. 39%. So we are there. I also have the name of the head of the management unit for gender within Ministry of Defense, if anybody is interested, by all means. One of the roles of any ambassador is to make contacts, to nurture new and hopefully projects that will, will flourish later. But I want to share now, and it is important, the short, very short story of the first woman officer in Romanian army. It happened 105 years ago, in 1917, a little bit in the middle of the First World War. We joined quite late the war in a coalition with France, United Kingdom, and Russia. And it was this lady, Kalinina Teodoroiu. She was a young teacher, a young nurse. She went to the battlefield. She was wounded twice. Then she asked to be enrolled. Our king at that point in time decorated her with military virtue. Then she was given the command of a 25-man platoon. She was hit by a machine gun. And she died saying, "Forward, man, don't give up. I'm still with you." She was 23 years old. 105 years later, in December last year, the National Bank of Romania put her image, her portrait, on a bill of 20 lei, 20 RON, as popular as 20 ringgits bill here in Malaysia. It was too late? It was too little? I don't think so. She is the first named woman on a Romanian bill. So what am I saying with so many words is that now is a good time to be more careful to the legacy of visionary women who were the first, either in their countries, in their regions, on their continents, in doing something, anything at all, even if it was by tragedy, by accident. I think this story should be learned today, easily. These stories should inspire young girls to choose whatever they want, to have as many opportunities as possible. There's nothing we cannot do. Now, my second point is related with the average pay gap. Because in the end of the day, it's all about money. Many will argue, is it about money? Always. Average pay gap. So allow me to move from my country, Romania, to the European Union. So to, let's say, 2/3 of Europeans. European Union, 27 member states. The average pay gap between women and men is 13%, 13%. That means over a year, women are doing, of course, presuming they are doing precisely the same job, they are paid less 2 months. 13% does not look too high, but when we are saying, oh, but she's paid 2 months less for the same work as a male earner, this is a question mark. For this pay gap to be fulfilled, it will take for the European Union member states, in average, 30 years, 3 decades from now on. So you thought 200 years, it's way ahead in 10 generations from now on. 30 years to reduce, to fill the gap, for this economic gap within the European Union member states to disappear. Is it poetic justice? Is it a human right? It's more than that. It's a prerequisite of an open, fully functional society. Because in the end of the day, women are half of the humankind. Just like that. Any society, any country should tap into this enormous pool of energies and knowledge and loyalty and discipline and name it. Now, for this brings me to my third point. What are we going to do if eventually we decide to do something? To do something in our families, in our social conversations, in our networking. I believe that is the state, each and every state who bears finally the primary responsibility to create the legal framework, the prerequisite for all the citizens to fulfill their aspirations. Because this is inside the genuine contract of a person being citizen of a country. Of course, we have different histories, different religions, different approaches, different cultural roots. Sometimes they are helpful, sometimes they are not very helpful. But in the end of the day, I think the primary responsibility for having, indeed, for empowering women or empowering young people who are also underrepresented in the political establishments worldwide resides with the state, with any state. Now, some statistics. From time to time, I'm providing statistics because it's good to know what are we talking about. In Romania, we are doing very well in terms of let's say, women in leadership position in administration, central administration. 53.9 women in leadership position. That means 52.6 secretary generals at the ministries, director generals 55. So I think in a way we reach this parity, which mirrors the society. If you want, it's so natural, so simple. We still have things to do in terms of parliament. Our parliament, which is absolutely average in comparison with other parliaments worldwide, we have just 18.8% women elected in the lower house, and in the upper house, 17.7%. That is why I would like to share with you something which is a draft law which is now on the table at the Parliament of Romania. It's about, the draft law calls, very interesting, it's about financing the electoral campaign and later on the political parties in accordance with the quota or the number of women elected, and also goes for the young people as well, underrepresented, let's say. Women are underrepresented gender across the world. So this is interesting. It's just a draft law, but I just wanted to underline what it can be done in real terms. Now, in terms of a more gender balanced representation, and this goes so well with the thematic, economic thematic of this summit, we have also a draft law in Brussels for the European Union, very interesting, and I hope to be the near future, if not this year, perhaps next year. So the draft EU law says that for non-executive administrator of listed companies, stock exchange listed companies, 40% for non-executive administrators appointed to be women. By 2026, to be women, by 2026. I think this will be a huge step forward, not only for the Europeans, but also for all other regions of the world, to look into how to really empower the women participation. If member states of the European Union will choose to apply the new rules both to executive and non-executive administrators of the listed companies, listed as stock exchange in various countries, then the number, the quota, should be 33%, 1/3 of all administrators across the European Union will be women by 2026, I hope. Now, I couldn't end without saying a little bit about my own job description, diplomacy. Many people across this room might be surprised when I'm going to say that diplomacy, like the political establishment, is a very conservative profession. By default, I should say, by default. We are the former representatives of our countries, wherever we are. The first woman ever appointed minister was a Romanian woman in 1947. She was foreign minister, otherwise quite a... Thank you. But I cannot stop now. Huh? My image and my sound goes very well, so I will go for 2 more minutes. Just to finish this. 1947, first minister ever appointed. She was foreign minister of Romania. The second foreign minister was appointed just 3 years ago for a short while. So when I joined MFA in 1992, the women were diplomats. Diplomats were women just by, let's say, not accident, but very few, very, very, very few, underlined with very, very, very. Now, 29% of the Romanian ambassadors are women, 33% of Romanian chargés des affaires, we are women, and 33% of directors for Romanian Cultural Institute. So this happened in 3 decades. You think 30 years, it's a long time, or it's a short one. If it's the right time to do something, I think we may be inspired each other during this sort of events. And I would like not to conclude before acknowledging the presence in the room of some outstanding women. So allow me to introduce the distinguished ambassador of Timor-Leste. I would like to introduce as well my colleague in the Embassy of Romania, General Consul Olivia Nedea. So current and future ambassadors, obviously. Also the distinguished representative of the Kuwait Embassy. I think she might have skipped. And all other diplomats. So I think in the end of the day that advancing the cause of more women in all walks of life, in all countries, this is what will progress the humankind. And I hope that my generation, our generation, as we are living here for me, for my mandate here in Malaysia, I think to have our added value in progressing this important topic. Thank you once again for having me and looking forward with our conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nina. That was a very insightful sharing with all the statistics. But I'm going to go on with the next question with you later with regards to what you have just shared. But before we move on to our next speaker, I would like to get the video up. This is for Her High Excellency of Ambassador of St. Petersburg, Rector of the St. Petersburg Social and Economy Institute, Chairman of the St. Petersburg branch of the Union Women of Russia, Women's Alliances, Elena Kalinina.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, first of all, allow me to thank the organizers of the International Women's Summit, Economy and Business, for the invitation to take part in its work, even if it is online, and to render the best regards from Russia for its participants. I live and work in a wonderful city of St. Petersburg. I am the president of the St. Petersburg branch of the Russian Union of Women and the rector of the St. Petersburg Social and Economic Institute. My colleagues and I founded it 30 years ago in order to train women to be managers and entrepreneurs. We always paid special attention to the development of their leaders' abilities, and my presentation is based on our research, my personal experience, and the experience of my colleagues. Over 400,000 students were trained at our institute during these 30 years. They all expanded their knowledge and opportunities under new economic and political realities. I know there are issues that concern business people, men and women, not only in Russia, but all over the world. Is it true that leadership can be either male or female? What makes it different from similar notions, management and governance? What prevents women from carrying out complex projects and from leading other people? I will try to answer these rather difficult questions. As I see it, there are three main components in leadership: cognitive, emotional, clarifying. Do I want to be a leader? Act as a leader. Another component is related to behavior. If we consider leadership from this point of view, we will not find any serious differences between male and female leadership, but real life shows that women sometimes lack confidence needed to influence others and to make responsible decisions. So, for me, the difference between male leadership and female is in the possibility of having an influence. It happened so that over a long period of time, women were deprived of that privilege. Most of the leading positions belonged to men. It happened extremely rarely that women were appointed to the responsible positions in companies, corporations, and in public structures. Moreover, women avoided those and customarily preferred to stay in shade. Leadership to which we are used was mostly male, and this way of thinking was rather persistent. But the world is changing faster than we could ever imagine. New challenges emerge, pandemics, hybrid wars. We witness the changing balance of political, economic, religious, and ethnic powers. In many countries of the world, as well as in Russia, women become more active and influence the processes in politics, economy, social life, and business. Every year, we organize International Women's Conference. East and West meet in St. Petersburg, where we discuss the implementation of the equal rights and opportunities policy in different countries. This autumn, on October 27-28, we will have the 28th conference. I hope representatives of East and West, North and South, open for cooperation and to new ideas, will meet again on the banks of the Neva. Dear ladies and gentlemen, you are most welcome to take part in the conference. Today, as never before, we need this dialogue. We can see that the world is extremely fragile. A careless phrase might ruin its harmony, and we understand that in politics, economy, and business, it is most important to listen to each other, to hear and to understand each other. That way, even the most challenging problems can be resolved in a much more productive way. I am sure that the role of women in the tackling of practically any problem in different countries will grow. My colleagues, women leaders, are more pragmatic and more creative when dealing with certain issues. They enjoy greater credibility. Their moves are carefully thought out and balanced. Quite recently, no one could imagine, at least in our country, that so many women would come into business and different management structures. Statistics shows that all over the world, women are more successful in getting education. Their education is of better quality than that of men. Qualified employees in companies are mostly women. 57% of university graduates are women. By 2025, this share will increase in the world. In Russia, 63 out of 100 of qualified professionals are women. And social entrepreneurship is also being developed by women. In this sphere, they are in absolute majority. And who decides what and where to buy? Everything needed for production and for family life. Women do that. In economy, the weak gender controls 80% of consumer expenses. Women classify trends and form the final demand, manage expenses of their families, of senior family members and children. With all that, women are less active in economy than men. We lack confidence in decision-making. This is something we need to master. How can we do it? In different countries, there are different systems, different experience and role models. We should promote them. At such fora as economy and business, which I am happy to be a part of, as the St. Petersburg Conference, East and West meet in St. Petersburg, give a chance to exchange experience and to meet global leaders. Tarya Halonen, Michelle Bachelet, Valentina Matviyenko, Rosa Otimbaeva took part in the St. Petersburg Forum. These brilliant leaders can teach us a lot, and this example is outside the gender issue. It is equally useful for men and for women. When do we accept a person as a leader? Not necessarily when he or she is at the top of power. Rather, when they can see a problem, are capable of solving it, and find new approaches in this multipolar world. More and more people understand this, and more often we say that it is most important to develop horizontal contacts and networks. Let me say that I am still sure that the larger is the number of women involved in decision-making at different levels, the more harmonious and more socially oriented will be the world. And people will be more tolerant to each other. But first of all, women need to believe that the role of a leader rather helps them to be successful mothers and wives. Success and career will help them to become materially sustainable, and this will make them more independent and confident.
Wonderful. That was from High Excellency of Elena Kalinina. Let's move on to Puan Nur Aslina Zainal Abidin, the Group Chief Executive Officer. We want to hear from you now. Are we talking about this women leadership, whether it is a fantasy or reality? And I'm going to shoot you with another rapid fire question as well before I go to Ninette. Now, Panuro, we know that it is very highly notable that you have productively delivered over 150 million in value and saving to customer through your leadership and digital transformation. So this, how did you do the business optimization, and how did you actually create this extraordinary example for women? Because it's not easy. Puan was sharing with us earlier this morning at our roundtable just now, that when she went into Theta H to make the equal number of women representative in Theta H was not an easy journey, I believe. And throughout your experience as well, you have encountered whether the stereotype or the proverbial glass ceiling. So your point over this.
Okay, thank you, Kavita. Assalamualaikum, very good morning to all. Happy to see many women, beautiful women here today, and also very supportive men who are here to discuss our topic. I think the fact that we are all here talking about whether the glass ceiling is a reality or fantasy makes it real. Because I think the topic has been discussed over and over again for many, many years, and we're still talking about it today. So it boils down to, in my perspective or in my journey, what I feel is that whatever we do today, the impact of that decision-making will come back to us in a cycle of at least 20 to 30 years to come, right? So if the initiative of glass ceiling was started about 40 years ago, so now we may see the impact of it, some changes of some policies that are actually taking place. So I believe that this glass ceiling or an illusion of a glass ceiling is there, it's real, but it's actually being supported by a couple of things. In my experience, I believe it is the surrounding that we were raised in, right? I grew up where my mom would tell me, don't play cars, don't play guns, you're a girl, you play dolls, and masak-masak, you know. And we grew up with that concept of girls have their own place, girls say the things that they can say, and boys have their own space as well. So then that sort of actually shaped already the expectation or the illusion of the glass ceiling was already formed, in my perspective, when we were at that age. I was growing up in the early 70s, So I think those who are in the late 40s, mid 40s are still experiencing the same upbringing that we do, right? And that also comes with the leadership roles that we were allowed to take in our life's journey, right? So I was fortunate enough to be born as the eldest in the family. I stayed with my grandma, who owns her own shop and runs business for the family. And so I observed a lot of women leaders in my life. My mother gave up her job to care for us, and I see how she had actually planned our whole life. So though she's not working, but she is actually the planner behind it all, right? So that's a leadership role. And again, another part that I can see is the communication tone that surrounds us when we were being raised. Do we allow cynical remarks as, shh, you're not supposed to say that, you're a girl, so don't make such remarks, it's not your place. Those are the things that we grew up with. So somehow or other, as a grown woman now at the age of 47, as I was going through my career, that is a ceiling that I sort of set for myself, I feel. Because there's a certain limit that I will go and I will say, yeah, that's not my place. Yeah. But as you go along, you then raise awareness that it exists because you feel biasness, right? So you start to feel that for the same position that you're being interviewed for, men go through 2 phases and you have to go through 5 phases. Though your
Does that really happen nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Some places.
Some places, yeah. So I think, so when this is a real thing that we are facing today, right? So I think things are changing now. As parents, we are now more cognizant of these things happening. We allow our children to take up more leadership roles. We allow the girls to speak more freely. We ask them to participate in things that would also contribute to the community, right? So I think in my journey to date, when I first joined this organization, I'm probably one of the first GLC women leader in Malaysia today, I think. The organization that I joined for 30 years have not had a woman leader. So it's always been male dominated, maybe due to the industry. It's a telecommunication industry, it's IT industry, it's green technology. So being a leader that comes in after 30 years of not seeing someone wearing skirt coming to office, I am very aware of what I need to bring into the organization. So I am aware of that situation. So it makes you frame yourself in terms of your thoughts process, your communication, and the things that you need to change. The first thing that I do is to evaluate the diversity in leadership in the organization. So when I notice that there's only about less than 10% women in leadership position in the company, I changed that. So today I'm proud to say that 50% of the direct report to me is actually women.
Excellent. So that's the promoting part that I was talking about earlier, which is bringing the growth with the interest and accountability. Not many women come and say, look, I take the responsibilities, I take the accountabilities, I have the continued interest to progress together with the man. We are not here saying that I'm going to fight with the man, yeah? I'm going to go against the man, yeah? You know, I'm going to be your competitor. No. My mantra is always collaborate with the man. Then the equality, you don't have to fight for it. It will just automatically will come. I think you said it very well. Great. We move on to the next question to Elena. Elena, the statistic that you have actually showed, including this statement that, of course, we've heard it from our ambassador just now, and this is about the number of women getting involved in politics as well as in policy making. So we also acknowledge that women in business in Romania, together with other organizations, you have collaborated with Italy, Spain, Latvia, Great Britain, and you have also tasked of encouraging private companies and employer organizations to actively facilitate the access to the skilled women. That's very, very great achievement, I must say that. How do you think that women can transform entrepreneurship through technology and stay relevant?
Yes, thank you for the question. And indeed, I think in terms of vulnerable groups of people, women are vulnerable as long as we are underrepresented in various walks of social life or political life or economic life. I think networking is a good starting point because this is one, learning about the relevant, successful experience. So drawing a little bit of energy from there. Secondly, we need to dare to do what never before us ever did. Even if it was by tragedy or by accident, I strongly believe that that lessons learned in this way, stories told, are important. Also to understand that advancing socially is not nurturing the differences, but what we have in common. I think this is more important. It's not as easy as spotting differences. It's so easy to spot differences. Even sometimes if you are contemplating women clothing, oh, we are different. Yes, but that's not the point. It doesn't matter how long we are keeping our hair, if we have high heels or not, if we are covered or not. I think what it is important is our impact in our life, in our professional and personal life, is our impact to family, because women will always be the primary caregivers for the children. What are the social implications? You are skipping time. You are skipping months. You are skipping years from your career, if you have one. And coming back is not as easy as it sounds. Sometimes you are taking where you left it. Sometimes you are 2 or 3 square backs. But you need to do it. This is the only way. And I fully agree. It's not about women-men competition. I cannot think a worse approach than this one. It's not about this. And I know, and I always told I have 4 sons. And I know in a way I was relieved. I said, oh, I have sons, so it will be easier for them, no matter where. But now I have a granddaughter. Oops. The conversation came back to my family. Granddaughter. So in 20 years, no matter where she will live, she certainly will have more opportunities than we have now. So networking in countries which are in the region, that's a natural network. But I think now we need to move to cross-regional, because this is the power of United Nations, for instance. United Nations have this power of cross-bridging among regions.
Right, so I would rather take that to key point that you have shared, which is the networking and also the diversity between the cross-region, that would actually help women entrepreneurs to progress and transform themselves. And all the countries nowadays, we are also leading very much into, heading up with so much into the technology transformation. So everything is about technology, and we have to take the opportunity to be with that.
Can I add something here? Something very, very specific. I learned a few years ago that there's a point with statistic of women enrolling to STEM. So science, mathematics, IT, and so on. To be honest, my country is doing very well. We have a long-standing tradition of having women enrolling for STEM, but also for engineering, for professions which, even as we speak, are still statistically male-dominating. But the trend started to balance a little bit. And women are fully capable to be outstanding engineers, as to be outstanding math teachers or physics, or just name it. So it's important, I think, to have and to advertise all kinds of education opportunities for the girls, not to push them, to be, I don't know, just nice, or to go with easy jobs like, I don't know, artistic jobs or things that are more related with women nature. We do have a women nature. We are caregivers. We have a healing inner energy. But in the end of the day, it's about having opportunities and having multiple choice since early and over our lifetime. So I want to speak about this.
Yes, I totally agree. It's a wonderful point to emphasize that. I would like to see an advertisement. If you have technology-related advertisement saying I'm hiring, say for example, in my own field, cybersecurity analyst or engineer, women are encouraged to apply. Boleh? We usually see fresh graduates are encouraged to apply, or certain languages is being emphasized. So now the advertisement must change. Women are encouraged to apply, right? Please come forward. I'll be talking about it later during my panel session. I'm going to move on to Delia. Delia, can you hear us?
Here.
Okay, Delia, I'm delighted to learn that you are the first woman career diplomat to become Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs in Asia. And you have also represented Philippines in Switzerland, Romania, and Federal Republic Germany, and the Commonwealth of Australia. So why women should lead the charge of equitable workplace, especially in the senior leadership position like you? Why?
That's a nice point. You remind me of a statement of Steve Jobs. He said, to deliver a message, you must have a story. The story must answer the question, why? I think earlier I gave you the reasons why I think a woman is a natural diplomat. I think I have discussed the fact that the female brain works very well in very relevant ways in meeting the challenges of diplomacy, being able to nurture relationships, being able to develop networking, and all the positives that we have mentioned today. But one thing that I think that has come to be a major challenge is the girls' voice in terms of access to the internet. If we are looking at the future, and I was very impressed with the report of the ILO when it partnered with LinkedIn in India, and they said that a 32% gap exists between boys and girls in terms of literacy in the use of internet. I think this would be a major way that we have been looking at in terms of how to narrow that gender gap. And I think I'm very pleased to say that most of the tech companies today in the Philippines, I was very impressed that IBM and Accenture and Converges are being led by women, and that most of the workers in these IT companies are women. And I think, to me, this is a very bright future in terms of what women leadership should look like in the future. I think internet or artificial intelligence is one equalizing factor in terms of exposing women to leadership roles. I'm glad to hear about Romania. I opened our embassy in Romania 70 years ago. You won't believe it. I mean, our relations were 70 years ago, and I was always impressed with the way the women had access to engineering. I remember petroleum engineering. In fact, next year, when the Global Summit of Women meets in Dubai, one of the major areas is cooperation, women in petroleum and related energy-related professions.
Right, thank you, Delia.
Wonderful introduction.
Sure, very good point. Thank you very much. I think that opens a lot of interesting facts about why the women leadership, especially in the senior leadership like you, is important. Now back to Nurul. How do you think that women, we in this room, can contribute to the economic development of Malaysia?
I think first of all, we are the change. So we make the change that we want to see happen, right? So every role of leadership, women not only in organization but in community, we also play a role to take up those challenges. So in every aspects that we take a leadership position, or rather we need to step up to take that leadership position. In most situations when I go out doing our outreach of our community or CSR program, we find that there are still women in the rural area that is still lacking the confidence to step up to, if we say we want a champion in a certain area, we want a leadership role in a certain area, I guess it comes with a lot of commitment at the back of their head that they are taking care of the kids, you know, they have to give up their time. How do they find time to do that? So that comes with policies that will have to support their participation in the economy. So since you raised that question, so we have a lot of ambassadors here as well. I think governments of the world would need to take recognition that tax structure will have to change if you want to encourage more women to participate in the economy or in the workforce. In today's environment, there is no difference between women who are a breadwinner to the family between the men, but women who is the breadwinner to the family would actually have to care for the children. They have to pay for childcare. They have to pay for a lot more things if they were to come out to join the economy. So tax structure to allow for women to have childcare allowances and to look at benefits that would actually allow women to hire help. And those policies will need to be adjusted to allow participation of women. Now, we need to recognize that women cannot, I mean, those years of where cynical remarks where, are you going to go back, take care of your children and all that, those has ended. I'm glad.
At certain age.
Yeah. So I think now we have to recognize that people come with families, people come with kids, they have their responsibilities. And once that's taken care of, they perform as usual.
As usual.
And one thing I think women is of slightly of a better mark as I manage men as well. I find that we multitask excellently well.
Our brain has been engineered in such a way.
Yeah, because you've got to, I mean, I've got commands from, I mean, the men that I managed to say, boss, we can only focus on 3 things. I said, really? We have to manage on 20 things before we come to work and then priorities at work. So I think that is a benefit that we have. And I think together with men who are really very focused in what they want to achieve, that combination is excellent. What we cannot deny is the fact that we are 50% of the world population, right? So that means that if we have lack of leadership of women in the leadership role, our needs and our care and how things are going to be shaped in work environment. Example, as simple as if you walk into an organization and you cannot find a place where the mother who is nursing will have a comfortable place to do what she needs to do because she needs to care for her baby, and she has to do it in a toilet. We still find that today, yeah? And we can't deny that, right? So if that is still happening today, that means that there are women who will decide that it's going to be tough for me, and I'm just going to
go to the workplace and perform their
So that's why you
childcare.
can see some women at a certain age, they drop out of work and later come back when their children are 5 or 6 or 7 years old, because those years are very difficult for childcare.
Now, when the women come back, it is still the door is open for them, and they need to come back with the willpower that they can still make the change and navigate the workplace.
I mean, I think women, when they the European countries have started by giving 2 years leave for mothers, you know, which I feel is important, because the children at that 2 years age is really a nurturing age that will dictate what their life is going to be like. And those are leaders. We are creating leaders,
More
right?
leaders, yes.
So I think in environment today, policies are very important. How you encourage performance, how you look at flexible working hours, how you look at the workplace environment to allow for women to do what they do.
The
Without
freedom
having
need to be given.
feel discriminated in any way,
Right.
or having to find a place where they can do whatever they need to do, so that it's not seen by others. So I find that those are policies that are very important for us to set in companies. And when we take up leadership role in a company, as women, as what we have been hearing, we need to help each other. Simply means that we need to start looking at things equally.
Yep.
And equal means giving equal opportunity, equal, access to amenities and facilities in the company, and flexible working hours. I think after the pandemic, the world have suddenly changed, right? So we don't really need physical people to come to office anymore, and we just realize that people can deliver work from anywhere, right? So that has actually helped, and if that policy can be adopted, I think more women will participate in the economy. Tax structure, benefits that will be given for women to get more access to childcare, to help in assisting them at home. So those are things that will need to be set up or be in place to encourage more women to participate in economy.
I would like to add one point here when you're saying that this are the facility or the amenities, and also the need has been given to the need to be given to the women. I also would like to acknowledge that Sabah government has actually announced if the woman is having her menstrual on the first day, then they are given a day off to take rest. So that kind of due respect has been given to the women. So we are not here to complain. I don't have that. I can't see this. I didn't hear that. They are not helping me. They are not supporting me. I'm late at the back, It is about women coming forward and grab the opportunities that has been laid in front of you. Now, with that, before I close my session, I would like to quickly, with 1 minute closing point, what would you like to tell the women in the studio here?
Well, as I like statistics very much, I have a good all of them are good because they are reality, but I have a statistics which is very relevant because you were talking about actually positive discrimination in order not to feel discriminated, because we need positive discrimination. Well, because we are nurturing the future of the humankind. So it goes with the territory. Now, my very specific statistics said that the gender gap in European Union member states in full-time jobs in the 27 countries of the EU is highest, so the gender gap is highest between women and men which are single than between women and men in couples with children. So we need to, one of the things is that don't consider, no matter when and how, for your own life or for the life of a friend or whatever, don't consider that having a family or having children is slowing you down. It might feel like that in most of the days, but in the end of the day, if you have enough energy and if you have enough determination and you are perseverant, I think you're going to make it. And you know, statistics is there. That
Definitely.
Is one. Secondly, if I may,
sure.
And that's it, short. So it was said in the morning, and that's a reality for all of us for 2022. We are cared about food, fuel, fertilizers, and finance, yes? We should add another one. Could be the Cinderella of the first four. Fairness. Fairness. This is what we need. Fairness. Equal fairness. This is what it is. And I hope that the summit of world women in business in KL in 50 years from now on might see the added value of our generation, including here through this networking session and through this wonderful opportunity that we have to learn from each other. Because you know, when a woman is appointed in a leadership position, the expectations are highest,
right,
from the other women. first and foremost, and for all colleagues. Expectations are so high, so high. We need to meet those expectations. Thank you very much for having me.
That needs a lot of energy to meet that expectation. Now, Delia, over to you. One last point. What would you like to say to all the beautiful women in the hall today?
Well, I would like to remind women that perhaps women who make it to the top must recognize the role that other women played in their lives to make it for them to reach the top. I think that the importance of women helping other women has always been in my thoughts, and that for people to move up in the career, questions of caring for the family, etc. We are lucky in Asia because we still have strong family ties where caring for children, caring for the family is still an important role that many women play to allow other women to move forward in their respective careers. Insofar as my advice to many of the young diplomats I have been training in the past, I always remind them, please do not be aggressive, but please be assertive. Assertiveness means a lot of developing your character as a credible person with integrity, and you'll be surprised you'll make it. And the third is for me to see the networking happening more intensively here in ASEAN. The Vietnamese women have started a fantastic ASEAN Women Entrepreneurs Network. I think it's time for the ASEAN Women CEOs to get together and move the needle. I have met terrific women CEOs of 4 major banks in Thailand last week, and I said, please link up with the other women in ASEAN. We will be a major contribution in building ASEAN as a credible and important regional organization in our part of the world.
Great,
so
great.
Us and feminine and gender are my main topics, so I'm sticking to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Delia. Thank you for the wonderful insights. And Nurul, what would be the last closing point that you'd like to share to the beautiful, fabulous women in the hall today?
I think one last thing that we would like to I would like to share is that the limit that we set for ourselves can always be broken. You reach a certain level, then you know that with that level you can go higher, and it's the same concept as the glass ceiling. So it's an illusion, it's invisible. So as the higher you go, you push that ceiling further up, and with the hope that one day, you know, the policies, the right policies that's being set by the government and all that, this ceiling will actually be not there, yeah, one day. But my take to all the women is that do not be worried about the nature of a woman when you take up a leadership role. Embrace the emotional or emotions that you bring to the job. Because I'm one of those persons who will always be told, leave your emotions out of the door and come in. To think.
Women are always...
Yeah, so but I
like
feel that in today's world, people are teaching emotional intelligence and stuff, and emotions are real. People come to emotions, they're not robots.
That's right.
And people are even designing AI to understand the emotions,
yes,
right? So right. I think do not be worried about that. Do not be worried to admit that I have 4 kids. I have 4 kids. I have 1 dyslexic daughter. I have 1 autistic son. And I go to work from 8 to 8 at night every day.
That's right.
But I do manage the therapies, the programs that have to be taken by these children. Come to work and admit these things that you have, and be upfront with it. And doesn't mean that that is a disability that you have, because a mother is nurturing leaders of the world. So your role as a leader is actually triple position, not the Superman that wears underpants on the outside, but you are actually, when you come up, you step up to participate in the economy, you are setting a real example to the younger women out there. And I feel that be ourselves. Do not compete with men, because men have their own strength. And I work with men. 95% of my workforce is actually men. And I enjoy it because of that difference that we bring to the table, and that ability to question things that I don't say men don't think of. It's by nature, they are a single-minded, very focused gender, and we bring that holistic aspect to things. We think of everything, we think of everybody, and that sensitivity and emotions actually add value. I call it bring the luster and the glamour to the work, and add that sprinkle of happiness to the workforce, and encourage women to participate in the leadership function.
Wonderful. So I've got this closing point, but this is a request to Tan Sri as well as the organizing chair lady. Hopefully next year we have Men World Economy and Business Summit, and I'll still be the moderator. I would like to end this session, though we know we have a lot of things to discuss and say with all the beautiful and fabulous, powerful women here, and they shared a lot of insights, but I would like to end this with my own written poem. Some men think and they freak. Some men think and they are thrilled. We stand in pride. Make your check. Walk the respect. This is how they made me. This goes out to all my beautiful ladies today. Our persuasion can build a nation. Endless power, true spirit. With our love, we can devour. We can run the world. Help me raise a glass, all of you, for the wonderful women here today, to all the men that respect that what we do. Please expect and also accept my shine with all the beautiful ladies here today. How we are smart enough to make these millions, strong enough to bear the children, resilient enough to run the world. Great. Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. And my pleasure to moderate this session today. Have a good day. Have a blessed day.
Thank you to Dr. Kavita and the panelists. And can I